Hi everyone, welcome to more Political Excess. Today, let's do another 2024 presidential tier ranking. This time, all of the candidates in one, which would be most likely to win the general election if they were the nominee for one party or the other. A lot of these candidates would not make it through the primaries, but let's pretend if they did, how likely would they be to win? I have tiers A, B, C, D, and F. So let's jump right into this and start with Greg Abbott. And that is an outdated picture of Abbott. I don't know why this is so old, but Abbott, if he was the nominee for the Republicans, he would do okay. I'm going to put him at C. I don't think he would do a lot, but he wouldn't do nothing. He does represent Texas. That would get him some kind of status. Stacey Abrams, the Democrats love her. She has yet to win a statewide race. She's probably going to lose again for governor. For that reason, I got to put her at D. She just hasn't had enough success to be able to make a compelling argument to win the presidency. If she was the nominee, she probably wouldn't do horrible, but I would have to say she would probably lose. Next, Joe Biden, I'll just put him in A since he is the incumbent. Give him that. Next, Michael Bloomberg. See, Bloomberg is tricky. He has so much money. He could buy his way into anything. If he was the nominee, he would stand a reasonable chance. It could even be a B tier. He's not that likable. He's one of those rich, out of touch guys. I'll put him in C. Next, Pete Buttigieg. I'll put him in B. I guess he might make it interesting if he was a nominee. Some of the polls show him doing fairly well. Next, Tucker Carlson. I'll put him in B also. I think he would make a good run for it to excite that Trump base, and he's kind of an outsider. I think that would give him some points, make him a little appealing across more than just a narrow sector of the Republican electorate. And next, I think that is a portrait of Chris Christie. That is horrible that they would use that. But Christie, he has his following. In a general election, if he were the nominee, I would put him in C tier. I think he would draw in some of the Trump people, but he's very polarizing. And I know Tucker is polarizing, but I think Tucker would get more than Chris Christie, who kind of fell from his high point last decade. Next, AOC. She's very polarizing. She would have that kind of cult following from a small base. I don't see her doing a lot in a general election. We're looking at C to D tier. I'll put her in D, high D. I think the establishment would just turn on her. A lot of people would not want to come out and support her. Tom Cotton is next. He hasn't really made a name for himself beyond the Republican base in Arkansas. I'm going to put him in D, similar to AOC. I don't see him doing a lot. He does have some following, but it's just not a large enough appeal. Ted Cruz, I don't think he would do a lot. I'm going to put him in D. Next, that is a super old picture of Andrew Cuomo from the Clinton administration. I think if he was a nominee, people would come around to support him, but people hate him now. I'll put him in D. DeSantis, we'll put him in B. He's pretty top tier. He does pose a threat to win against almost anybody. Doug Ducey is next. He's on his way out of Arizona. I got to put him in F. I just don't see him having much appeal amongst Republicans anymore. And amongst Democrats, they're not going to like him either. Tulsi Gabbard, the Democrats do hate her. She would never win a primary. If she was somehow the nominee, she would get some crossover votes, similar to maybe Liz Cheney, I suppose. I think the Republicans would beat her. They'd rather have a full Republican than kind of a light Democrat. But she does have some outsider sort of status, kind of goes against the grain. That does bump her up a little, maybe to C. I'll put her in D, just high D, I guess. Matt Gaetz, F. He would do, I don't think, anything. He's just too low profile being in the House. Lindsey Graham, that's an F. He would do nothing as well. Next, that is Nikki Haley. I don't know. I think the establishment Republicans like her a lot. It makes her in the conversation. I'll put her at C. Kamala Harris, put her at B. She's already in there. She's got high profile. I don't think she's really that great of a candidate, but gotta put her somewhere. Next, Howie Hawkins. I guess if he was the nominee for the Democrats, I think he would be way too on the fringe. And yeah, he would have some appeal and draw for being an outsider and anti-establishment. That is true, but I don't think a lot of people even know who he is. So for that reason, I got to put him in F. Next, Josh Hawley. I think he would do okay. It's a little too early for Hawley, but we'll put him in the middle of the pack. Larry Hogan. If he were the nominee for the Republicans, how well would he do? That's the question. I'm going to say probably D. I think too many Republicans would just stay home. They wouldn't support him. Jo Jorgensen, the Libertarian nominee in 2020, if she was the nominee for the Republicans, similar to Howie Hawkins, I don't think she would really do a lot. She'd probably do a little better than Hawkins, but I don't think she has too much appeal. Amy Klobuchar, if she were the nominee, it's more of a CD type tier. I put her at C because, I don't know, she ran and didn't do the absolute worst back in 2020. Next, Mike Lee. I really don't know what Mike Lee would do. I really don't know what his appeal is. He seems kind of bland, kind of non-threatening, but once he got into it, I'm sure he would be polarizing. I'll put him at a low C. Gavin Newsom, I'll put him up at B. Seems to be making kind of a move to posture for a run. I don't think he would do too terribly. He's kind of young, well known. Next, Kristi Noem. I don't know. I don't think she would do a lot. She seems like she might be kind of cast as a Sarah Palin light. If she jumped into it, that might put people off. I'll put her at a high D. Mike Pence, if he were the nominee, a lot of Republicans would stay home again. I think he would do worse with his base than he would need to, and the Democrat would win. Next, Mike Pompeo. I don't know how much appeal he has beyond a Republican base. I'm going to put him at D also. Marco Rubio. He's got a chance. He could do something. That's kind of a high C, maybe a low B. Bernie Sanders. If he was the nominee, that would be interesting if he actually got the nomination to see what he would do. I'm gonna put him at a high C, low B, kind of put him in the C. I think some Democrats would stay home. They would not want to support him because he's too much of an outsider, maybe a little too extreme. He does have a shot, though, even though he is getting kind of old at this point. Next is Ben Sass. Sass, I think, would do so little. He has no charisma, no excitability. He could go in D, but let's put him in F. Rick Scott. I don't see Rick Scott doing anything either. I'm going to put him in F also. There's not enough personality, not enough broad appeal. Next, Senator Tim Scott. I think he would probably be doing a little bit better than Rick Scott, but I don't think Tim Scott would have a whole lot of appeal. It's maybe a high D. Donald Trump Jr., I don't know. If Trump wasn't there, if he was the nominee, he would get some support. I'll put him in C. Trump will go in A just because he already won it. Even though technically I think DeSantis would do better than Trump right now, I'll put him in A just because him and Biden, they're both in office. It's hard to pick an A tier. I'll just put those two in there. Next is Ivanka Trump. F. She would do 0. Elizabeth Warren, put her in low C. Kanye West, he's not a politician. You'd have that going for him, but F. Finally, Andrew Yang. I think Yang would have a better chance than some of these other Democrats if he was the Democratic nominee. He did start his own party. Democrats don't like him. I think there would be some appeal because he is willing to go against the establishment. I'll put him in C tier. You could certainly change some of these around if you'd like, but that is what I've settled on. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree or do you disagree? And if you're a fan of this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video.